Hi, this is Gabe Newell, and welcome to the Lost Coast. In this tour, we're going to be talking about a new graphics technology we've been developing called High Dynamic Range, or HDR. We'll also be giving you some insight into the design and production challenges we faced during the construction of the Lost Coast. First, a quick...
With conventional rendering, seen here on the left, if something on the screen is 20% reflective, like the wet sand, then the maximum reflected brightness could only be 20% of the maximum brightness of...
The process of building characters in Half-Life 2 taught us many things. By the end, we believed we'd figured out a more effective process for designing and constructing characters. This fisherman is the first character we built using that process. Design-wise, the fisherman was focused on showcasing HDR and the way light falls on human skin. The highlights on his forehead and nose are good examples of specularity on human skin. You can see
Water presents us with a lot of rendering challenges. In fact, we have to render the scene 3 times, once for the refraction of what's under...
Эй! Эй, ты! Погоди минутку, а ты не... Ты! Ты тот ученый тип! Фридман! Фишман, да? Держу здесь, чтобы разобраться. Не знаю, что может сделать. Зачем еще учиться в святую воду в такие времена? Я доставлю тебя до их базы. Или куда смогу доставить, не щадя себя. Так, давай я открою тебе эти ворота. Ключ здесь. Где-то здесь. Вот этот. Пошли прямо сейчас, салага. Давай, заканчивай с той пушкой, не копайся.
Цель.
The area you're currently entering is called the Cliffside Arena. We were particularly happy with the vertical cliffside in Half-Life 1 and regretted that we didn't iterate further on that concept in Half-Life 2. Vertical space allows us to force the player to deal with threats from above and below. We find that players focus their view on the direction they're travelling, so by using a cliffside and having the player ascend it, we ensure that the player will look up and be prepared for enemies. If the player's path was to move past the bottom of the cliffside, it would be unlikely he would notice soldiers rappelling down from above. And dying from unknown threats never feels fair and certainly isn't fun.
Цель номер 1. Цель видна.
Обнаружена кровопотеря.
one of the features of our HDR solution is dynamic tone mapping. The easiest way to think about dynamic tone mapping is that it's a method of simulating the way the human eye reacts to light. In the real world, you've probably walked into a dark room and noticed your eye adjusting to the dark.
The courtyard in front of you is a space we call an arena. Arenas are built to hold the player for a period of time and usually contain combat or some other challenge. They often have multiple entry points for enemies, along with a gate of some kind to prevent the player moving on until the challenge has been completed. In this case, the arena is free of enemies until the player solves a puzzle and triggers an alarm. This is a method that allows the player...
The source engine supports a wide variety of shaders. The refraction shader on the window here requires us to copy the scene to a texture, refract it, and then apply it to the window surface. To fully support HDR, every shader in the engine needed to be updated, so this refraction shader was improved to support the full range of contrast. If you view
We wanted to transition from a bright, wide-open space into a tighter, closed one to showcase HDR's dynamic tone mapping. We also like to focus on churches are great dramatic spaces. They're often lit naturally with extremes of darkness and
Our games are filled with things we call gates, which are essentially just challenges that the player must overcome to drive the experience forward. We used a puzzle here since the player has been through combat and exploration recently. When we design challenges, we try to ensure that the player's goal and the action required by the player are both fun. It's not hard to create interesting goals for the player, like stopping this machine from shelling the nearby village, but the action required by the player to solve the challenge needs to be fun as well. So instead of something menial, such as hitting an off switch, the player gets to use physics to jam the gun's mechanism and cause it to break.
This marks the end of the Lost Coast tour. This has been an experiment on our part to see if our community would find it interesting to learn more about our development process. As always, we're interested in your feedback. I can be reached at gaben, Gaben, at valvesoftware.com. If people like this, we'll keep producing this kind of content for all of our games going forward. Thanks for listening.